Okay, here we go. Matthew chapter 9. We're going to start reading in verse 37. Just two verses. That's all we're going to read for a second. Two verses. Matthew chapter 9, verse 37 through 38 says this. And this is Jesus talking. And he says this. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore pray earnestly to the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest." Now, first thing we're gonna look at. You've heard this a lot of times, pretty common verse. Jesus says, guys, pray to the Lord of the harvest that He would send laborers into the harvest. Okay, now the first thing we're going to ask is, what exactly is the harvest? We're going to answer all these questions tonight. What is the harvest? Is the harvest a person, or is the harvest an actual crop, like corn? What do you think? I mean, it says person, right? So who is the harvest? If it's a person, who? Now, if there's a harvest and that harvest has to be reaped, who is going to reap that harvest? Is that going to be you? Is it going to be me? Who's it going to be? Who's supposed to bring this harvest in? We don't know. We're going to find out. Now, let me ask you this. If you're the person that's supposed to bring in the harvest, how are you going to do it? We don't know. So we're going to look at all that. We're going to look at it. So this is where we're going to find it. If you'll go back to Luke chapter 9, verse 9. And this is one of the most crucial things I've ever seen in the whole Bible. It's one of my favorite Bible stories ever. Favorite Bible stories. Here we go. We're going to read verse 9 through 13. So that whole little section, we're going to read it. And then we're going to pray. It says this. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at a tax booth. And he said to him, "Follow me." And he rose and followed him. And as Jesus reclined at the table in his house, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" But when he heard it, he said, "Those who are well need no physician, but those who are sick. Go and learn what this means. I desire mercy and sacrifice, for I am not to call the righteous, but sinners." Let's pray. So, let me ask you this. If you notice, we have a sin measure, like a meter of sin. So we've got small sins. Like, you know, small sins. Like I remember this when I was little. If somebody called my house that my dad didn't want to talk to, what would he say? "Daniel, you answer that. This is what you tell him. I'm not home." Right? You guys ever done that? Or, yes, you have. Yeah. Little white lies, right? So we've got like small sins. We've got small, medium sins. We've got just regular old medium sins, like if you slap your girlfriend. I'm playing, that's a little bit bigger. There's a medium sin. There's a medium large sin. There's large sins. Then there's like supersized sins. And then there's, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that" sins. You know what I'm talking about? We all have sins like, we all rate sins on a scale like that. Do you know anybody that is just really good at sinning? When hands go up. Like, you know people that they're just like so proficient at sinning, you're just like, they should get a job as a sinner because they're good at it. Like, they're just good at sinning. Now, how many of you ever said, if God can save Leon, He can save anybody? If God can save Pamela, not you, Pamela, but Pamela, God can save anybody. If God can save Tony, God can save anybody. You guys ever said that? You ever heard anybody say that? You've heard people say it all the time. Or how many of you ever heard people say, they're so bad, I will not hang out with them? You ever heard people say that? Yeah, how many of you have ever said that? Like, they are so bad, like they're bad people. I'm not going anywhere near them. We said that, or we've heard people say that. So we've covered that list. How many of you were here 2 weeks ago when my buddy Jared shared his testimony? Jared is one of those people that you look at and say, if God can save Jared, God can save anybody. He can. Like, this dude, the night he got saved, was trafficking marijuana. Like over a pound of it. And he had a bottle of Jack in the trunk of his car. And this guy was an alcoholic, and he was into drugs, and he was the meanest person I ever met in my life. I was not a very good, like I didn't have like a really super high moral standards. I wasn't super bad. But Jared was so bad that I wouldn't hang out with him. I was like, I don't even know what to do with that kid. He's going to make me do something I don't want to do, like meth. I don't want to be around him. He's bad. How about this? Our Walmart, in my hometown, we have the second largest Walmart in the world. Yes, I know, don't applaud, please. We have this super huge Walmart. Jared got arrested from stealing from Walmart because he thought it was funny. Like a group of my friends just went to Walmart to see if they could steal stuff just to do it. And he got arrested. because he's an idiot. But see that? You look at somebody like that, you think, that guy is now like going to become a youth pastor? No. No way. So we would all admit that there are people that if we would say, if God can save them, that's a pretty big deal. Right? We're all on that page. Thank you. You'll see where this plays out in just a second. And we'll talk about it more. So I'm going to read chapter 9, verse 9. I'm going to read just verse 9, and we're going to break it down verse by verse and see what it means. Here we go. Now, to break this down, let you know what's going on. Jesus had just took a boat back to his city. He's walking around healing people, and he's doing all kinds of miracles. That brings us to verse 9. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at a tax booth. Now, what do we know about Matthew? Matthew was a Jew, but he was working for the Roman government. So what did that mean? The Jews hated him. He was like a traitor. Imagine this. It's like, it'd be kind of like Cam Newton going to play football for Alabama. Would you get just...
What?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, what? No! No, he didn't! I'm okay with him going to the NFL, but not Alabama. Right? So this is the same thing. He's like a traitor, and he's a tax collector. Now, tax collecting was kind of strange back in that day because there wasn't like a set tax rate. You just made it up. So he was stealing from people. He was ripping people off. He was evil. He should be in jail because he was an evil person. Okay? We're clear? Now, Matthew knew who Jesus was because some of Matthew's family members were in Jesus' posse. So he knew who he was, but he didn't worship him as God. He was not a Christian. He was not a follower of Jesus. Jesus approaches this man, and this is what he says in verse 9. As Jesus passed on from there, he saw a man called Matthew sitting at a tax booth, and he said to him, "Follow me." And then what's the next part? And what did Matthew do? And he rose and followed him. Now this is why that is strange. Did Matthew go looking for Jesus, or did Jesus go looking for Matthew? Jesus went looking for Matthew. Now what was Matthew? An evil person. Here's what I want you to see right off the bat, right now. Jesus goes looking for you. He came looking for you. You didn't go looking for Jesus. Jesus came after you. When you were evil, when you were a sinner, just like Matthew, Jesus came after you. And then the strangest thing ever, it says he rose and he followed him. Now imagine if you see a long-haired Middle Eastern guy. Okay? That already right now, because you're from Alabama, you're like, no, I'm not talking to him. No. Yeah. What'd you say? He said Osama. He would look kind of like that. So this dude approaches you. Okay? And you kind of, you know a little bit about him, but he just walks up to you and he says, "Hey! Hey! Matthew! Follow me!" Now, if you're in that situation and some random crazy looking dude walks up to you and he says, "Follow me," what are you going to do? Are you going to stranger danger? You stay away from me. No. No, I'm not getting in your van. No. Right? You're like, I'm not going anywhere with you. No, I'm going to blow my whistle. Go away. Right? So, let me ask you this. If you're in that, imagine, really, right now, you're in that situation, this guy walks up to you and he says, "Follow me." What are you going to do? Run away? Okay, so we got a lot of strange answers. I heard something about a double cheeseburger. I don't know. Okay, anyway, so this is how it's strange. Now, if it was me, I'd be like, "Hey, that sounds kind of cool. Hey, I got to go back to my house. I left my stove on. I'll be right back, all right?" Yeah, but I don't want to offend him and be like, "No, I'm not going anywhere, you crazy man." So I'll be like, "Yeah, that sounds like an awesome idea. Let me go tell my family I'm going to leave for a few days." And then I'll walk away and never see him again. Or I'll be like, "Yeah, I would love to do that, but I'm hungry. I'm going to go buy Taco Bell first. I'll meet up with you on the way. Is that okay?" Yeah?
What if he says no?
What if he says no?
What if he says he wants to go to Taco Bell with you? Yeah.
I think Jesus would go to Taco Bell with me. Yes, I think he would. But anyway, for the sake of the story, can you stop it? Can you stop it? Man, so let me ask you this. Once again, if you're in that situation and this guy approaches you and says, "Follow me," what are you going to do? Most of you said, "No, I'm not going with you. I'm not going anywhere with you." Now, what do you think made Matthew want to go? But he didn't worship him himself. Here's what I think made Matthew want to go. Here's what I think. This is me personally. This is me personally. And I think this is the big crucial thing that you're going to have to learn. Step 1, you have to realize that Jesus came looking for you. Step 2, this is what made Matthew get up. Like he quit his job. Like he left his job and went to follow this crazy guy. So this is why he got up out of the chair. I'm convinced. Because of faith. The reason why he got out of his chair was faith, because for some reason he just knew that this was going to work out for the good. He quit his job. He stepped into the unknown because of faith. He didn't know what was going to happen next. The Bible says that without faith it's impossible to please God. And Matthew had faith. He stepped out on a limb. He followed this crazy guy, and he went with him. So let's pick the story back up. Let's go verses 10 through 13. Now, verses 10 through 13, remember we asked the question, who is the harvest? Are we the ones supposed to harvest the harvest? And how am I supposed to harvest this harvest? Yes, it is confusing, which is the way I'm wording it. So those are our 3 questions. Verses 10 through 13, I think, are going to answer those questions. It's going to answer the who and the how. Okay? So verses 10 through 13. Let's read verse 10. And as Jesus reclined at the table in the house, behold, many tax collectors and sinners came and were reclining with Jesus and his disciples. Now, who did it say were reclining with Jesus? Tax collectors, who we know are?
Evil.
Bad people, evil, they're sinners. And then who was the other group that said was with him? Sinners. Now, here's what I want you to see, and I want you to realize, because a lot of you are going to have a hard time. Remember we asked the question. We stated there's a sin meter, like certain sins are worse than others, is what we think and claim. And then we also asked the question, do you know any people that if God can save them, He can save anybody? What I'm asking is, are there some just really bad people that you just don't think would ever go to church? We all think yes. Here's what's crazy about this story. He's reclining with tax collectors, and he's reclining with who? Sinners. Now who would the sinners include in this day and time? It would include some pretty rough people. I posted a status on Facebook and it started blowing up, and it was about this passage. Jesus Christ would have, and it was a tiny Middle Eastern table, it was really low to the ground, so he would have been sitting on a cushion, laid back, hanging out with these people. Like really close, intimate setting, in this house, chilling with these people. What kind of people? Crackheads, whores, pimps, robbers, thieves, liars, rapists, child abusers, every piece of scum that you could imagine in life, Jesus Christ was sitting at the table with. Meth addicts, people who are selling drugs to kids, they're all at the table. Every single one of them. Now that's hard for some of us to believe, right? Here's what I want you to know. Jesus Christ is the friend of sinners. He's the friend of sinners. Now, that doesn't mean that He condones their sin and says it's okay, it's not a big deal. But what it says is that Jesus is willing to love a sinner so much that they want to change. They just can't do it anymore. Now, some of you have a hard time believing that Jesus is the friend of sinners. Let me remind you that Jesus is your friend too. And what are you? You're a sinner. I have this weird thing that I want to think that I'm better than people just because I've never shot and killed anybody, and I've never cheated on my wife, and I've never done drugs or stole a large amount of money. I want to think that I'm better, but I'm not any better. I'm no better than anybody else in the world, and Jesus is my friend. And so He's saying at the table, sitting down, this is the statement that He makes at the table. You know, I accept you. I love you. Through all the crap that you've got going on in your life, through that I can love you. And I can love you so much that you'll want to change. Now, here's an important question I want to ask you. Where was Jesus at? He was at a house. Whose house was He at? That's right. That's right. He was at Matthew's house. Now, what's strange about that? He was at who? The guy's house that he just asked to come follow him. He went back to his crib. Now, who was at Matthew's house? And who else? All the bad people. Do you know whose friends those bad people were? Matthew's friends. So what does that say? Matthew didn't just say with words, sure, Jesus, I'll follow you. Yeah, that sounds like an awesome idea. You want me to go to church on Sundays? I think I can manage that. Yeah? Okay. What? Get a Jesus fish to go in my car? Yes, I can handle that. Done. Don't ask me anything else, Jesus. This is what it says about Matthew. Matthew just didn't say, sure, Jesus, I'll follow you. Matthew backed it up. He went and got all of his messed up friends, and who did He take them to?
Jesus.
To Jesus. All of his crazy, just crackhead, dirty friends, he went and got and brought them to Jesus.